Good day. Thank you for tuning in to this 2019 primary election candidate forum for Olympia City Council Position 3. The forum is presented by the League of Women Voters of Thurston County and Thurston Community Media. The League is a nonprofit organization that encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in their government. The League neither supports nor opposes candidates or parties, and we are nonpartisan. The League registers new voters, works to get out the vote, studies issues, and advocates for its positions with governing bodies. Despite its name, the League is open to both men and women aged 16 and older. I'm ELYETTE WEINSTEIN from the League, and I'll be moderating this forum. The candidates for Olympia City Council Position 3 are Dani Madrone and Matt Goldenberg. Unfortunately, candidate Boudica Walsh is unable to join us today. For this forum, each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Then I will ask a series of questions and alternate the order that each candidate responds. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for a response. At the end, there will be 2 minutes for closing statements by each candidate. We'll begin with opening statements from the candidates. Dani Madrone will begin the opening statements.
My name is Dani Madrone, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting these forums. Longtime listener, first-time caller. There's a saying that a woman needs to be asked to run for office 7 times before she decides to do it. I've been asked to run for Olympia City Council for 7 years. I've spent this time building relationships throughout the community and learning about a broad range of issues. This year, the call to run for office was much clearer and our challenges more pressing than ever. I became actively involved in the community when I was pregnant with my daughter, who turns 12 this summer. I realized that it was imperative that I do everything I can to build a better future. I studied science, sustainability, and public policy at the Evergreen State College. I worked on issues of climate change and renewable energy, housing, sustainable transportation, farmland preservation and food systems, civics, and environmental recovery. I currently have a career working on behalf of treaty tribes on restoring Puget Sound. Homelessness is the most pressing issue for our community, and everyone is impacted. We need a crisis management plan in Olympia that is based on evidence, measures our progress, and includes everyone in the solutions. And after struggling to remain in the area when I was a low-income single mother, I'm personally invested in housing solutions. Wages are not keeping pace with the cost of living. We need diverse housing options so that everyone can find a home that is right for them. As an environmental professional, I am committed to protecting the planet for future generations. I will fight for bold actions around climate change and incorporate science-based environmental stewardship into every decision made by Olympia City Council. And finally, we need to be having better conversations around difficult issues in Olympia. I believe that local government has a role to play in helping people find shared interests and values. Between residents in the city, competing groups, or neighbor to neighbor, better conversations make better decisions. With my skills as a community organizer, I will find new and creative ways for people to engage in city issues. Thank you.
Candidate Goldenberg, would you like to give your opening statement?
Yes, hi, thank you. My name is Dr. Matt Goldenberg. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I have a specialized practice here in Olympia where I work as a trauma specialist. And in particular, I treat trauma from oppression, so people who have suffered from racism, sexism, xenophobia, and so on. In my practice, I see people who are impacted by systems all the time, and it's part of why I've decided to run for city council. I'd like to try to be a little bit more ahead of the problem than I've been able to be in my clinical work. In addition to what I'm seeing now as a clinical psychologist, I'm realizing that our city council is yet again in a state of emergency regarding houselessness, and this has been a continued problem. In my view, one of our solutions is to diversify the city council with diverse skill sets and diverse identities. I would be very happy to voice the perspective of a social scientist who has spent his career involved in harm reduction and has served houseless people over many agencies and sits with people on a daily basis who are suffering under the oppressive systems that we've built. Further, I have deep concerns about environmentalism. Like my challenger, I am also a parent and have 2 children who will be in this school district in Olympia. Both my 3-year-old and 7-year-old are going to inherit the economic, the moral, and the environmental crises that we've set. I am very much looking forward to getting into these issues so we can discuss housing equity, racial equity, and climate justice as my 3 most important issues.
Thank you. I will now direct question number 1 to candidate Goldenberg. How do you propose to fulfill the city's goals for a safer, cleaner, and more welcoming downtown?
Thank you for that question. I would like to identify, first of all, that there is a big difference between feeling safe and feeling comfortable. And many people in our city discuss feeling uncomfortable when they go downtown. But there's a group of people who are constantly unsafe, as in life in jeopardy, and those are our houseless brothers and sisters in that community. I believe that all of us deserve equitable, high-quality health care. One of the solutions that we need to work on is expanding our needle exchange and expanding the healthcare navigation that we do at those sites by working better with our Department of Health and with our service providers. We need to ensure that we are operationalizing our housing first policy, which means bringing people into care in a low barrier and compassionate way. And as well, once we are able to bring people into more care, we will be able to reduce the amount of needles and syringes that end up in our environment, which are extremely harmful, not just to our waterways, but to our children and the animals who live off this land.
Thank you. I will now direct the same question to candidate Madrone. Do you want me to repeat it?
Nope, that's okay.
Great.
So downtown is a shared space. It's our social, cultural, economic hub of the community, and not just for Olympia, but for the surrounding areas as well. And right now we're having some really extreme impacts around homelessness, and everyone is impacted. We have people who are sleeping outside in cold and wet and inhumane conditions. We are having some businesses that are struggling with the environment. I've knocked on hundreds of doors in this community already, and I'm hearing from people who say they don't feel comfortable coming downtown. And the city is doing several things to try to address the level of crisis right now. There is the mobile mental health unit, the crisis response unit. There's the Familiar Faces program to serve people who are frequently interacting with the system. There is the clean team that goes down and cleans up downtown before most businesses open. And there's the mitigation site and the tiny home village and the home fund and a lot of things that we're doing. One thing that I would like to add to the city council is bringing performance measurements so that we can know what kind of impact that we're having and know that we're on the trajectory that we're hoping for. I also would like to see a really strong communications plan from the city, and that would include communication between the city and social service providers and how that works, how different departments within the city interact with each other and communicate, and then communication between the city and the public with two-way communication to make sure that people's voices are being heard as we respond to a really regional and national crisis.
Thank you. I will now proceed with the next question. And the first person to answer that will be candidate Madrone. The lot plant serves most of the people in this area. However, it is located downtown in an earthquake hazard and flood area prone to sea level rise at high tides, especially over the next 50 years. How would you work as part of the lot partnership to prepare for this?
So LOT is our sewage treatment facility for Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater, and the whole area. And it's really important that LOT is able to continue to function because that's how we can help keep our sewage out of Puget Sound. The city of Olympia recently adopted a sea level rise plan, and that was done in conjunction with LOT and the Port of Olympia. And we need to protect LOT. It's a huge investment, and I also think we need to have a plan B. I would like to see in a sea level rise plan how if we aren't able to achieve a certain amount of protection by a certain level of sea level rise, what is our next step? And I also would like to see some long-term planning with LOT in terms of, looking 50 or 100 years in the future. Is it time to start thinking about some other locations, maybe a bit more decentralized in how we treat our water so that so that we're prepared for that in the future. So I think right now we've got a best case scenario plan in place if we can get all the funding for it. And the science is changing on the issue every day, so I want to know what our plan B is.
Thank you. I will now address the same question to candidate Goldenberg. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes.
Happy to. The lot plant serves most of the people in this area. However, it is located downtown in an earthquake hazard and flood area prone to sea level rise at high tides, especially over the next 50 years. How would you work as part of the lot partnership to prepare for this eventuality? You have 2 minutes.
The sea level rise plan that candidate Madrone just referenced is pretty comprehensive in my view for this very wonderful partnership between LOT and the Port and City of Olympia. There's a few places within that plan that I could see myself as a candidate to be particularly effective, and that is in the community engagement arm of the plan. So the plan calls for such things as public workshops, as tours of the areas that could be affected, as coming up with innovative programs to get voters and residents aware of the issues. I am somebody who has worked as a college professor. I still work as a college professor. I also have worked as an equity consultant. And in my ideas around how to reach audiences, especially as somebody with a pretty specialized history of building relationships, I could see myself being very effective in helping deliver on those promises. I also have some questions about how we might be able to do this in a more creative way to reach children and to ensure that we're working with the next generation of change makers that we see ahead of us. I'd like to also say further that what will happen next in terms of that plan will depend a lot on our elections in terms of what happens in City Council and what happens with the port race. That plan is meant to be a living document. It's meant to be updated quite regularly. And so I would like to commit myself to continue to be part of that effort.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to the next question, and candidate Goldenberg will go first. What is your view about the adequacy of the water supply for Olympia? What steps are needed to ensure adequacy for the next several decades?
Okay, so in terms of the water adequacy, I would say that we are in some ways in a better position than other places in our region, which are going to be and have been quite prone to drought. However, if you look at the number of wildfires that we have undergone here in Washington State, those numbers are outstanding this year. And so to me, what right now, in most of us who are housed can turn on a faucet and expect clean water to come out. I don't think that that's something that we can continue to count on if we continue to see the level of fire that we're seeing. So part of the way that I think of this is to ensure adequate and quality water continues in our community. We absolutely need to get a hand on other issues that are impacting the climate, such as fire. I'd like to throw out one idea, which is to work with our houseless community to offer basic life-saving devices, such as miniature fire extinguishers. I think we could do this in a drive to offer backpacks, and the reason why that is important is because we have a lot of unsanctioned camping sites in Olympia, and there are fires starting. I confirmed this by speaking directly with the fire department. If we were going to give people the tools to help stop those fires early, we would be in a harm-reduced place of seeing more wildfire, thus keeping up our water quality.
Thank you. We will now ask the same question to candidate Madrone. Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, that's okay. So Olympia actually has a pretty secure supply of water for the next 20 years or so, and but that also doesn't mean that we should just use whatever kind of water that we want. I think that we need to do everything we can to reduce our usage. A lot of that is education and outreach. Some of that is making sure that we are upgrading outdated infrastructure. And some of that work is actually done by LOT down at the Wet Science Center, where they're making sure that people know what they can do to reduce their impact on water usage. And I would also like to see us do more with reclaimed water and gray water systems. There are some areas, especially in downtown, where the parks are watered with water that is coming out a lot instead of using fresh water. And I'd like to see us incorporate more of that into our public works infrastructure. And also, in terms of water shortage, I'd like to broaden the conversation a bit beyond Olympia, because we should be looking at the entire watershed. And there are issues out in the rural areas with unpermitted wells, where we are actually seeing less water going into streams, and that impacts salmon habitat. And I think it's important to remember in all of our conversations around housing and growth that if we can make sure that we bring the new population into urban centers where we do have a good plan around water and we do have a better ability to control our usage and monitor it, that is going to be an important thing for the entire watershed.
Thank you. We will now move on to the final question. And candidate Madrone will go first. What policies do you propose for city land use? How would you address urban sprawl?
For addressing urban sprawl and through our land use policies, so Olympia is expected to grow by 20,000 people over the next 20 years. And right now in our comprehensive plan, we have a plan for a lot of those people to be living in the urban nodes and urban density corridors. So that would be downtown Olympia, where we are seeing new housing. And we're also planning on having high density in areas around Capitol Mall and behind Ralph's Thriftway on the east side, along with the corridors that go between those nodes and then and to downtown. And I think that we need to be looking at some of the barriers to building and why we haven't seen as much housing as we have seen population growth, because we're seeing the cost of housing go up and up because people continue to move here even if there's not enough housing. And I think we need to do gentle infill into neighborhoods so that everybody's able to find a home that is right for them. I would like to see the city have more concrete goals around affordability. Right now there are values and statements in our comprehensive plan about making sure that we have diverse housing options on the range of affordability. I'd like to know what our targets are around that and what our plan is to make sure that we're not displacing people from our community as we grow, and that in addition to market rate housing that we're seeing coming online, how are we making sure that we're also seeing housing that's affordable for people who are at average median income and below.
Thank you. Candidate Goldenberg, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thank you.
Okay.
So in regards to housing, as my fellow candidate mentioned, we are in quite a crisis at this point. This system was built and paid for and sustained by those of us who live here. And I do believe that it's going to take all of us to get ourselves out of this situation so that we can create housing that's fair for everybody. On a particular note of concern is that the majority of people of color who live in Washington State do not live in Thurston County. And when we're talking about housing, we need to talk about income equity and also how that is affecting a growing racial disparity in our city. I would like to ensure that when we talk about housing, we do talk about income equity, supporting a $15 minimum wage, as many progressives see this as very, very important. I also have developed a proposal to incentivize entrepreneurs of color to help revitalize our downtown market and ensure that people are able to build successful businesses. In terms of housing affordability, I am concerned that we have a tax incentive for builders to get a vacation on taxes if they have some level of affordable housing and for a 12-year tax vacation. Now, it's a great idea, but I don't believe that many programs have taken it up. In fact, I believe only the new bill, the Merit Manor, has taken up that incentive, and that says to me that we need to do something much more other than that incentive to ensure that we are thinking really strategically about how to build the housing that our community desperately needs.
Thank you. We will now proceed to closing statements. Each of you will have 2 minutes. Candidate Goldenberg will go first.
Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the League of Women Voters Forum today. It's been a pleasure just to have a chance to come here and to talk a little bit about some of the issues. This is definitely one of the moments that I know that I'll be proud of to say to my children, I tried to do something for you, and I tried to do something in this community. Because for a lot of us, and I think maybe speaking as someone who's in the millennial generation, we have really big concerns about all of the crises that we've inherited. And we further need to be concerned about the crises that we're perpetuating. So when we think about this city council, I strongly hope that our voters will join me in this view that we absolutely need to make sure that you have a diverse city council that has a diverse skill. I believe that I might be the only openly transgender person to serve an elected position in the state. And I'm saying that because I'm representing a community that's dying in numbers that can barely be recorded, and we've lost most of our federal rights. So when I'm running with people in mind, specific names of people that we've lost. And I hope that people will understand that that is part of the urgency and part of why I think we can all work together for a more equitable Olympia.
Thank you. Candidate Madrone, will you lead us out?
I will, yes. Again, thank you to the League of Women Voters. Local elections don't get as much coverage as state and federal elections, so this is just such a valuable resource for the community. I am invested in Olympia. I have over a decade of experience working in our community in issues around equity and the environment. Through this work, I've earned the endorsement of elected officials from every level of government, including U.S. Congress, the state, and Thurston County, a majority of city council members in Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater, and directors from 3 local school districts. These issues that we face in Olympia don't exist in a bubble, and we're going to need to work together. And I have experience working both with and between governments and communities in addressing a wide variety of issues. I want people to see the Olympia City Council as a partner in solving our biggest problems. Each person in this community offers a thread of our city's narrative, and I will weave these threads into a strong social fabric so that we can move forward together. You can learn more about me and my campaign at DaniMadrone.com, and you can reach me there and ask me any questions that you have. I love hearing from people. So I'd like to thank everybody who's tuning in and watching this forum and being involved in local elections.
Thank you to both of the candidates, and thank you for participating in the League of Women Voters Primary Election Forum for Olympia City Council Position 3. We encourage viewers to vote in the primary election, August 6, 2019. Remember, ballots are postage free, so just put them in the mail. The League particularly thanks Thurston Community Media for their ongoing support and assistance. Have a good day.